Good evening and warm welcome to all the participants. At the outset, let me wish you a very happy new year 2025. I hope this year brings you lots of luck and opportunities for success. And we are equally lucky and successful in getting Dr. Pavan Soni to speak on our platform. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Pavan Soni. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank you
that.
so much for sparing this time, and we look forward to having a wonderful conversation with you. And quickly, allow me to share my screen and do a small intro. After that, I'll hand it over back to you, sir, for your opening remarks. So these are WiseViews leadership conversations, which we typically hold every Friday. For the sake of convenience, we are holding it today on Thursday, but otherwise, we are on 177th session of WiseViews leadership conversations. We are very happy to have Dr. Pavan Soni. He is going to talk about designing your career, and this introduction and opening remarks will be for about 25 minutes. After that, we'll have 40 minutes of Q&A roughly. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Pavan Soni. He's an innovation evangelist by profession and a teacher by passion. He is the founder of Inflexion Point, offering programs on design, innovation, and leadership. His monthly newsletter, Inflexion Point, reaches to over 20,000 people across the world. He has conducted more than 600 workshops with 180 organizations in 10 countries, which is massive, very, very big. Dr. Pavan is a best-selling author of the books Design Your Thinking and Design Your Career, published by Penguin Random House. Apart from being an adjunct faculty at ISB Hyderabad and IIM Bangalore, Dr. Pavan is a columnist at Mint, Your Story, Inc. 42, Entrepreneur, and People Matters. Dr. Pavan was the only Indian to be shortlisted for the prestigious FT and McKinsey Brackenbauer Award for the Best Business Book of the Year 2016. He has been invited 5 times to speak at the TEDx and is featured as one of the 100 digital influencers of 2020 by Your Story. Dr. Pavan is a gold medalist from MBM Engineering College, Jodhpur, and he did his PGDIE from IIM Mumbai. He finished his doctoral studies from IIM Bangalore in the domain of innovation management. He is a passionate person about fitness, spirituality, guitar, chess, reading, and of course, fantastic and prolific writing. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. I am very, very happy to welcome you once again. I will now take one more moment to introduce my esteemed colleague, Dr. R. Prasad. He is the Senior Director of Academic Wing at ICFAI Group. He brings to the table a rich experience of 3 decades as an entrepreneur, as a corporate professional, and now as an academic at ICFAI. He holds BTech from IIT Bombay and PGDM from IIM Kolkata. Welcome, Professor Prasad. Very happy New Year to you too.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'll stop sharing the screen. And sir, we are all ears to you. We wanted to understand your journey of writing these books and the thoughts behind that and the strategy to help the readers and everyone who is interested in building their careers. Given the choice that we have made is today we're going to talk about design your career. And the other book, Design Your Thinking, probably we'll keep it for another day. And we would like to again seek your time for an in-person discussion with you. But for now, design your career. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much once again for this time.
Thank you. Okay. So the motivation behind writing this book, Design Your Career, really came from this realization that when I go to these organizations doing training programs, consulting work, etc., I often realize that the talent is getting massively wasted. When students prepare for the corporate world, when they get into the corporate world, they get a rude shock that whatever they have been studying for the corporate world is very much unlike that. A lot of things that they did not learn formally, they have to unlearn informally in the organization. And a colossal amount of people's talent, energies, emotions, and efforts get wasted into fighting organizational politics. So I started realizing that when you are spending such a massive amount of time in your career, if one were to look at numbers, if one were to live for 75 years of life, almost 25 years out of those 75 years, you are sleeping. Okay. And the thing that comes next to sleeping is working, which means if I take sleeping time away from your life, then the biggest part of your life is actually working. It's not even having time with your family, which means that if you are spending such a massive amount of your life's effort into working, you can't leave your career to accident. And that is where the title was Design Your Career. Your career cannot be an element of accident. It has to be an element of well thought out plan. Now, we all know plans don't always succeed. If there is anything, what is true for planning is that plans do fail. Even though plans fail, what doesn't fail is planning. Planning is a very, very critical skill that all of us need to develop. Planning and designing your career. So I'll read the byline of the book. This is the book, by the way. Okay, it's called Design Your Career. Okay, I'll read the byline of the book. The byline of the book is lead self, lead others, lead change. Let me indulge you on the next couple of minutes on each of these three elements: lead self, lead others, and lead change. Let's start with lead self. Now, what is extremely critical for all of us to understand that what is the central driver that each one of us have in our lives? Why are we eager to wake up early in the morning, hit the proverbial treadmill of a job, finish the job, jostle through the traffic that we have created, and then come back home? And in this book, I delineate four drivers. The first potential driver that one could have is fear. Now, fear is a very powerful driver. So powerful a driver fear is that today, if you are sitting in this session, it's only because of the paranoia of our ancestors. Our ancestors are highly paranoid. They would rather err on the side of safety than on the side of venturing, and as a result, the progeny survives. Now, many people lead their entire day, their entire work out of fear. They are afraid that if I don't show up on this meeting, my boss will be unhappy. They're afraid that if I log out before my boss logs out, I'll have a remark. They are afraid that if I don't get through this, then I'll not be promoted. The problem with fear as a driver of your life is that fear exhausts you. And as a result, we are seeing so many people in their 30s and 40s developing chest problems. Why suddenly a lot of people who are in relatively young age are suffering from hypertension, suffering from avoidable diseases, mostly lifestyle diseases? And the predominant reason is a massive amount of anxiety, fear. Fear is a big driver. The second driver that one could have is greed. Or, मुझे और चाहिए. I need more. Now, greed is a very, very powerful driver, and the startup community is a great case in point on how startups, the founders, are predominantly driven by greed. The massive, crazy valuation that we have of some of the companies is unjustifiable outside of the realm of greed. The problem with greed is that a person does not know what is enough. So you can work 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours. You can compromise your family life. You may have stress back home. Your relationship with your spouse, with your children, with your parents can be severed, but at least you are getting promoted. That is greed. And many people have this failed objective or a fallacy that I want to be retiring by the age of 40. Well, frankly, I've never seen anybody retire at the age of 40. I've never come across anybody. However, I have read in the newspaper people dying at the age of 40. Now, what is this all about? And why will somebody have to retire at 40? Imagine you retire at 40, then what do you do at 41? Do you stop living? Or do you keep going for vacations? And how many vacations can somebody have after all? I think one or two vacations per year is good enough. You can't be on the beach all day long, all throughout the year, which means you need something to keep you busy till you die. And that is what is career. Okay. So the first thing is fear. The second is greed. The third could be a sense of duty. Duty means that I wake up in the morning, I do my chores with a sense of duty. Duty is a very, very noble attitude to have towards life, towards work, at least better than both greed and fear. Because in duty, at least there is a transaction which is happening and the transaction is clean. But the only problem with a sense of duty is that duty has a sense of reciprocity. You do it only till the level there is a reciprocity from the other side. You show up if you get salaries. You do something outstanding as long as you get an accolade or a reward for that. So there is a sense of transaction and a reciprocity involved. Now, what is the most pious? We have discussed about greed, we have discussed about fear, we have discussed about duty. The most pious, and this is something which I'll go back to Bhagavad Gita. This is what Shri Krishna had told Arjuna when he talked about the four varnas. Unfortunately, we took the varnas as by birth, but if you understand, the varnas are not by birth, varnas are by karmas. It's what you do and not where you're born. So the fourth category is called as love. Now, you do something not because you have to do it. You do something not because if you don't do it, something else happens wrong. You don't do it just because you want something more. You do it because you love doing it. And what I would appeal to all the audience today is that take some time and understand that when you go to your office, what is your primary driver? Are you going to office because of fear? Are you going to office because of duty, because of greed, or because of love? And if you start realizing that throughout your day, throughout your career, almost every time that you are doing something, your primary driver is not love, then you would realize that you are just shortchanging yourself. At least there will be some element of love. And I'll give you an example of how all these things play out. Please keep in mind that no job in the world can give you 8 hours of love. No job in the world, including when you're looking after your own child. Imagine there is a mother who is taking care of her own child. Do you think parenting is 8 hours or 24 hours of love? I don't think so. Every parent will agree with me that in the 24 hours of parenting, there is a greed that my child should become good, my child should take care of me when I become old. There is a fear. What if I'm doing something wrong with my child? What if something wrong happens to my child? There is a duty that I must cook for my child. But I think the underlying factor is love. Similarly, in your job also, you would have some elements of fear. You will have some elements of greed, some elements of duty. But as long as the underlying element is love, I don't think there has to be much of a worry. So let me give you an example of my own book writing journey. This is my second book, and I'm on to my third book right now. We should come out in the middle of this year, 2025, most likely. And when I was writing my book journey with my publisher Penguin, I had all the four playing out: greed, fear, duty, and love. And I'll tell you how. I was always afraid that what if I'm not able to submit the manuscript on time? There was a fear. I was always afraid that what if the book doesn't do well? The greed which I had was that the book should do well. The book should be able to get me a bigger audience. I should be able to impact the way people think. There was a sense of duty that I must write 250 words per day. And I had to really stick to that schedule of writing 250 words per day, 250 clean words per day. If I didn't do it, then obviously I'll not be able to respect my publisher's timeline. But weaving all of that journey was a sense of love because I love writing. As long as I know that I love writing, I love coding, I love meeting clients, I love making presentations, I love talking to disgruntled customers. If I know that there is something fundamentally which I love, then everything else can be taken care of. And that is the primary thesis of my book, Design Your Career. That your career is too important, your career is too long to be taken and thought of as a chance episode. You need to be thinking about your career in a very systematic, in a very legitimate manner. So that is the key about, knowing self, what is the driver that you have. Then how do you lead others? The leading self is knowing yourself, leading others. And I believe that you can lead others only if you have full control on your own emotional makeup. Okay. I always believe that if you have to do anything remotely creative in your life, and I strongly believe that the future skill that we all need to have is three. The future belongs to three skills. Okay. And all the management colleges, all the engineering graduate, postgraduate colleges, I hope they pay heed to it. Then what are the three critical skills? The first skill that we need to develop going forward is attention. You need to have the skill of attention, drawing attention and having attention. Minus attention, you can never ever produce anything of substance. And unfortunately, what is happening in this today hyperactive world, where you have zillions of other things drawing your attention, is your attention is getting butchered. So the first thing is attention. The second thing is empathy or compassion. You need to be empathetic in your life to be able to understand people's problems, even before them telling their problems, before them even realizing their own problems. You need to be empathetic. And I don't think that empathy as a subject is taught. I was never taught a subject called empathy. But now I realize how important empathy is in my life. If I'm not able to empathize with people around me, as the saying goes, that people would not care about what you think. Okay, people will not care about what you think unless they think that you care. You see, people will not care about what you think unless they think that you care. You need to care about them. That is empathy and compassion. And the third thing is creativity. So empathy is about understanding the problem, and creativity is about solving the problem. And together with attention, empathy, and creativity, we will be able to come in a position that we are really able to distinguish ourselves from the onslaught of AI and chat GPT what you have. Because frankly speaking, for the very first time, your competition is no longer with the incoming batch. Your competition is with silicon and not with carbon. It's with germanium and not with carbon. For the very first time that we are seriously looking at a situation where almost anybody's job could be shortchanged. So how do you control your attention? How do you develop compassion? And how do you develop creativity? One simple tip, and the tip which I have for all of you is called as ITC. Very simple tip, ITC. Okay. What does ITC stand for? ITC stands for that whenever you encounter any situation in your life, your first response has to be I. What I mean by I is ignore. Okay. You need to develop a healthy disposition towards ignoring things. Okay. You're driving your car or you're driving your bike and somebody brushes your car or bike. There's no point in engaging with this person because whatever you may do now, nothing's going to get repaired in your car. But at least you can save your emotions. You can save your mental energy to do something much more important with it. Okay. That is I. Learn to ignore stuff in your life. Ignore people's behavior. It's okay. People behave in all the fashion all the time, so it's okay. Learn to ignore stuff. Okay. Don't try to correct everything in anything because life is very very random as such. If you can't ignore, and I would say 50% of the things you should really try to ignore. If you can't ignore, then comes T. T stands for tolerate. What I mean by tolerate is develop a capacity that you can tolerate things which you cannot be ignoring. Now, you tolerate things if you see a sense of self development in it. For example, if I'm learning guitar and my guitar teacher is telling me to do certain exercises which are very painful, not psychologically, but physiologically very painful, because when you're learning guitar, initial days your fingers will start bleeding. That's how painful, because you are actually strumming on a steel cord. These are all steel cords, by the way. Okay. So it can start bleeding. So, but you tolerate that till you develop thick skin on your fingertips. And that is where you tolerate stuff. So if you can't ignore, you tolerate because you develop yourself. So that's 40%. So 50% is ignore, 40% is tolerate. The last 10% is the most crucial part, which is called as C. C stands for confront. Okay. And you confront very selectively. You confront only when you think that yes, there is a very high potentiality that you can really go out and make a huge difference in the world. Okay. So that is your ITC rule. So to just sum it up before I take the questions, the first thing is know your drivers, which is it greed, fear, duty, love. The second thing is the skills of the future. The three skills of the future are attention, compassion, creativity. And the ITC rule, which is whenever you're encountering people, situations, tragedies in your life, learn to develop a disposition towards your life that it's okay. Okay, it's okay. Things happen all the time in your life. It's absolutely okay. Things didn't go as per your plan. It's okay. So learn to ignore. If things are not in a position where you can ignore, learn to develop tolerance. It's okay. And if you can't tolerate, only then you should selectively confront. And if I can give you a bonus thing, the bonus piece here would be develop a thick skin. Moti chamudi. Okay, don't be timid. If you're ever developing any novel idea, if you're ever going out and starting a business, remember that people will criticize you. Okay, there are all sorts of criticisms you will receive. Even for anything I do, I'll get criticized. If I don't do that, also, I'll get criticized. And for you to understand what I'm trying to say, just go on Twitter. For every statement that somebody would make, always people have opinions on both the sides. You can never ever make a simple statement, which means you can never please everybody. So stop trying to do that. Develop a thick skin. It's okay. Make a mistake, forgive yourself, and move on. Make a new mistake. So that is the attitude that one needs to have as far as career goes. So let me pause here, sir, and I'll be happy to take some questions now.
Brilliant, sir. Brilliant. Thank you so much. It is so wonderful listening to you all the while. Wish you continued, but then, we need to also have the Q&A. I want to thank you for introducing this topic. I read your book. I also wrote a review which was published in Business Line.
Yeah.
But
Thank you so much for that.
the way you have enticed the audience to read the book by the byline and explaining it is wonderful. Actually, you simplified it so well. I'm so happy that more number of people would latch on to reading this book immediately. When I first met you in Bangalore during the conversation, it was fantastic, and then quickly purchased the book and read. And even business line people have asked me to write a review, so I had to read it carefully. The notes I made and the kind of notes that you have introduced today There's a huge difference. That's why I really admire you. Apart from being a prolific writer, you're also a prolific thinker. Very nicely, you have explained to all of us, and this should encourage majority of us who are around the screen to go back and read if they have not already read it.
Thank
So
you.
I want to also welcome and thank all the huge list of participants who have joined this evening. They hail from various cities in this country. Apart from that, I think a couple of people I see from UK as well joining. That's interesting. And I think they have lots of questions. In case they want to talk to you, we'll open the mic for them at the end of the second cluster. But for now, we will reserve all the time for you to answer the questions that in the cluster one, Professor Prasad is going to have. I'll request Professor Prasad to start the Q&A. Thank you, Professor Prasad.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, Dr. Soni, for giving us a perspective which is very different, very relevant, and very much needed in today's world. Certainly, the way you put it across, extremely appealing, and I think very, very. You look at it very commonsensical. I mean, people don't do it, but that's why common sense is uncommon. I'll come to the first question. Now, you have given us three frameworks, drivers, skills, and ITC. So the question is, in your life, you have got from where you studied, your early life to where you are right now. So if you can help us illustrate how you got there using some of these frameworks, it will help us to understand this with a case.
Good question. It's a very good question, in fact. Let me go reverse chronologically. Then because often the dots start making sense only in the hindsight. Right. So let me go reverse chronologically. So right now I'm sitting in IIM Bangalore. I'm adjunct faculty here. Now I always had a choice between being a full-time faculty here or anywhere else and running my own startup and being a visiting faculty. And I chose the latter because one of the very fundamental beliefs which I always had is life is a portfolio of career and not a career. And a career is a portfolio of enterprise and not an enterprise. This portfolio approach is very important. Because imagine this thing that if I reduce my entire life to this wonderful place and this wonderful organization, then my emotions are tied to this organization. If something happens fantastic here, I feel happy that day. If something doesn't happen here, well, I don't feel happy that day. But when I am having a portfolio where some piece of it I'm doing teaching here and elsewhere, I'm doing my own writing, my researching, I do startup mentoring, I do corporate training programs, consultancy. When I do this portfolio, they tend to manage each other. So that is where I'm walking the talk that why I need to have a portfolio. And for the longest possible time, I have been of this fervent believer that financial freedom keeps you intellectually honest. So the reason I run a company is not so much to make money. The reason I run a company is to remain intellectually honest. So if tomorrow I really want to write something in my upcoming book, which I would not be able to write as a part of a larger institution, I should not eschew the thought. Because on my deathbed, I would most likely be regretting not about my mistakes, but the mistakes I did not make. I'll not be happy about them. I'll be sad about the mistakes which I did not make. So that is where. And when I went back to my Wipro days, previous to IIM Bangalore, so for about 7 years, I was in Wipro and I was dabbling with multiple things. And that is where, when I was working at Wipro from 8 in the morning till about 6 in the evening, my weekends and my evenings were devoted to teaching, which means on the sidelines, I was always teaching. For the longest possible time, I was trying to understand that what am I looking forward to more, working at Wipro or teaching after Wipro hours. I was not getting paid very handsomely because that was not the objective. Wipro was paying me pretty decently. But the objective was to understand that can I become a good teacher? And the day I realized that I can actually make a living out of teaching, which is after doing these experiments. Okay, only experiments will inform you, not your self-confidence. Self-confidence can also kill you. So you need to have a lot of experiments done in the background. And then I realized in 2011 that if I really look forward to teaching so much and not really becoming somebody big at Wipro, why don't I become a PhD? And that's when I wrote GMAT, I wrote TOEFL, I applied to a lot of colleges when I was at Wipro. And luckily, I got into IIM Bangalore campus and then I resigned from Wipro. And when I was at IIM Bangalore campus, they had a very interesting wedge. Do I go get out of the PhD program quickly? Because many times We really want to get into the program, and then once we get into the program of PhD, we want to get out as quickly as possible, which is a very ironic thing. So I thought that in the long run, nobody will remember how many years I took to do the PhD, isn't it? 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. Nobody will remember that. But what people will remember, and most likely what I will remember, is what did I produce? So between something that gives you a quick result versus something that gives you a long lasting result, I chose the latter, which is something that gives me long lasting result. So if you really look at it, the PhD, the topic which I did my PhD on, which is innovation culture, is something which dates back to my Wipro days. So for the longest time, now almost 22 years of my life, for the last 22 years, I have been totally consumed by this topic of innovation culture and creativity. That became a part of my work at Wipro. That became a part of my thesis at IMB, and that became a part of my company at Inflexion Point. And that has now become a part of my research, writing, and teaching. Which means that while you need to have a portfolio, the portfolio needs to be around a theme. And if you can really devote yourself through the ups and downs and the highs and lows to that particular theme, then you can really make a massive impact onto the society. I think I can still go on for another 30 years if my health permits, and I'm very, very careful about my health, because I think that is the only regret that one would have if the health doesn't support your talent. So that has been some of the ways in which whatever I've been advocating, I have tried to incorporate that in my life. So
Yes, I think you have answered it, responded to it very well. And certainly there's always a sense of intuition and you're able to explain it only later. I think this happens with many of us, there are certain things we feel, and then later when we look at the experience and then we look at it, I think the direction things start making more sense. And I think you have explained it very well. Your reflections on the decisions that you took are in line with what you have discussed. And I can see that, that what you call the centrality, the authenticity of what you said, that you'd like to do what you said, walk the talk kind of thing is coming through pretty clearly. I think here what I would do is I'd also move on to the next question. And that is, today we have the millennials as a generation, and we have Gen X, which is there. And how the organizations used to be before that, and the baby boomers, etc. They are all of a different type, and you have got this discussion which is going on. And in that context, the way Gen X and millennials look at the career design and what you are talking about, intuitively there seems to be that yes, some of these things they are also intuitively trying. I mean, moving around in organizations, looking at purpose. Like for instance, you have done it in your case, being clear about what you like and therefore spending your time on it. So if you need to respond to the millennial generation, of course you have given the drivers. There's also a certain sense of uncertainty that they face. They face so many pressures from their parents, and so there's also peer pressure. Somebody got this, somebody got that kind of a thing. So if you need to take care of that angle and then, give that space and, define that space both for the parents who are also concerned, as well as people of that generation who are actually right in the middle of it, what kind of reassurance would you give to them?
good question. The first thing is that I'll try to give very practical tips to the participants. And again, I will not speak anything which I have not tried and which I don't practice personally. Otherwise, I'll not have conviction of doing it. The first thing is that when people say that we are living in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world, my only question to you and to people is that was world not VUCA in 1924? A century back, world was equally VUCA. We had just come out of the First World War, the most wasteful war of all times. In the next 5 years' time, we are staring at the greatest depression of all times. And we think that the world is not going to see another war. And in the next 20 years' time frame, we have another bloody war starting in 1939. Was world not VUCA then? World was VUCA. And in 1918, we had the Spanish flu, which was much, much, much more severe than the COVID which we experienced a couple of years back. So world was always VUCA. But the only difference between that time and this time was this. Yesterday, when our great ancestors were sitting in a village, their world was the village. Okay, whatever was happening in their local village in terms of water shortage, in terms of harvest not happening, in terms of a neighboring tribe attacking them. That was their worldview, and they were pretty much worried about that. But today, we are worried about a plane that got crashed in South Korea, fiasco that happened in New Orleans. There is an asteroid which is coming towards Earth, or the global temperature which is going up, and henceforth and so on. So the more number of things which are occupying our mind, we are not only getting more and more concerned, we are actually feeling helpless. But tell me, was Earth not warming 100 years back? Was crime not happening 100 years back? The answer is yes. As a matter of fact, we are the most peaceful time in the entire human race. Of the 200,000 years of human existence, we are in the most peaceful era. It's ironic that while we have peace around us, we don't have peace inside us. And the reason we don't have peace inside us, even if we have peace around us, is because we have this tendency of trying to occupy our mind with lots of things. So the first advice which I have for all the students is to please exit as many WhatsApp groups as possible. Okay? You can exit WhatsApp groups. If, believe me, I'm in zero WhatsApp group. Believe me, if there is an important information that has to reach you, it will reach you. And if it doesn't reach you, it is not important. By exiting WhatsApp group, by exiting these places where you are continuously getting bombarded with information which you can't do anything about. Frankly speaking, with all the sort of sadness which I have for the South Korean plane crash debacle, I can't do anything about it. Can I stop traveling by flight? I can't. What can I do? I can't do anything about it. But for the longest time, these things are occupying our head. So try to reduce your zone of concern and increase your zone of influence. That's the first thing. The second thing is develop tangible skills. The three skills which I spoke about: attention, empathy, and problem solving. It doesn't matter what course you are doing. Often, what you need to understand is that 50% of all the professions that children will be doing who are in their 20s have not been invented yet. So, what are teachers teaching? Teachers are not teaching profession, teachers are teaching attitude. Okay? Professional skills can always be developed at a later point of time. What you cannot develop at a later point of time, or what you cannot correct at a later point of time, is your attitude. So, whatever course you are doing, right now I'm teaching a couple of courses in IIM Bangalore, and people often ask me that, sir, how relevant will this course be? And my answer to them is that what is relevant is that, are you acing the course? That is what is relevant. I know trigonometry is not relevant to me anymore. I know Pythagoras theorem I never used in my life. I know I never used mensuration in my life. But what I'm using is the hard work which I developed when I was solving Pythagoras theorem. What I'm using is the hard work which I developed when I was learning trigonometry. That hard work, the tenacity of problem solving, the analytical skills, that is important. What I'm doing is not important. How I'm doing is important. That's the second thing. And the third thing is, and this will take a lot of time for you to realize, but if I can circuit the path for you, is that, believe me, the only competition worthy is with yourself of yesterday. On a daily basis, ask this question: that am I better today than I was yesterday? Believe me, and you don't have to wait for the 1st of January's new resolution to ask this question. You can ask this question pretty much any day of your life. Am I better today than yesterday? Am I more educated? Am I more calm? Am I more responsible? Am I less agitated? Am I more broad in my thinking? Am I less angry than yesterday? And if the answer is yes, believe me, you are heading in the right direction. It doesn't really matter where your colleagues are. It doesn't matter, because you have no idea what is their script of life. What are we comparing ourselves with? Okay, so each one of us have our own script of life. Just be attentive. Don't stretch your attention to what is happening in Ukraine and Gaza by reading all the time and by watching social media channels. Exit as many groups as possible, because you don't really need so many people in your life, frankly speaking. And study well. Whatever you're studying, as long as you're the topper of what you're studying, it doesn't matter whatever you're studying. It's absolutely okay. What matters is ability to study, not what you study. That is very critical. So I hope that answers the question, sir.
I think you have given a very good perspective on where to focus. And this learning to learn business, and what is inside that pot will keep changing. And but if you know how to understand that vessel or that box.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's the message that you have. And I think you also bought some of the very basic principles that a lot of ancient philosophies do teach, right, to center stage. And I think, parents, of course, will have a huge role here. And I was wondering how one would, reduce the influence of the peer group, because the momentum is towards the peer group even today. So that is one aspect of the question which still remains. I mean, what you're saying, very few people talk this language, and there are others who will say, okay, AI has come in. So, what should I learn about AI which is relevant for my job? So then I've got another to do task which occupies my mind. And I think the students also will have the same kind of a mentality. Now, how do you, if I have to ask a supplementary question on this? So while you want to retain that space which gives you this calmness, etc., or develop that space, perhaps that space is not there or it's very small for a lot of people who are around and who are in that sense of agitation. How do you develop that space vis-a-vis this kind of impulses and kind of information which keeps coming to you? How do you do that?
I think one of the, let's look at a thought experiment for a moment, okay? And this is a thought experiment by often use it in my own calming down exercises. Somebody went into a cave in December 2019, okay, with food, basic food. And he went into the cave in December 2019. And the person came out of the cave in January 2023. And between December 2019 and January 2023, the whole world was moved upside down with COVID. Correct? And COVID, for most of us, if not for all of us, was the biggest disruption in our living lives. For the very first time, we could not do the most basic things that we took for granted. Many people unfortunately lost their loved ones. But tell me one thing, if I look out on the traffic at the airport, at the railway station, in shopping malls, is there any trace of COVID left in people's behavior? No. If that same guy who was in the cave in December 2019 came out of the cave, he would have no understanding what was COVID. He did not even understand that the what is the hell and heaven that you went through. So what I'm trying to say is that humans have the ability of withstanding the biggest casualty that nature can offer to us. And that's the reason we are surviving till. Which means that when I was a class 5th student, the biggest problem in my life was my half-yearly exam of history. I could not crack history. When I was in 10th standard, that half-yearly exam of 5th was looking laughable to me. But when I was in 10th standard, my board exam, which used to coincide with Holi, was my biggest problem. But when I was in 12th standard, that 10th standard exam was looking simple to me because suddenly I have calculus to deal with. The moment I get into engineering, my 12th class exam was looking puny to me, and henceforth and so on. So don't you realize that the problem that you are grappling with today, only 1 year from now, it will start looking puny to you? It will. Just the way 5th start exam was looking puny in front of 10th and 10th in front of 12th and 12th in front of your engineering. Similarly, with your current level of thinking, your current problem looks unsurmountable. But with your tomorrow's level of thinking, the current problem will look very puny. Correct? Which means that there is nothing in your life which is as bad or as good. So if you can have this belief system, this fundamental belief, that's okay. It's okay. In Hindi, there is a very beautiful saying कि जो भी होता है अच्छे के लिए होता है. Okay? So if you can have this very fundamental belief system कि it's okay. नौकरी नहीं मिली तो भी कोई बात नहीं, मैं कुछ तो कर लूंगा अपनी लाइफ के साथ. Even if I don't get that job, it's okay. I'll do something else with my life. If I get, failed in this, it's okay. I'll do something with my life. If you can have that attitude towards life, you'll start realizing that you will not blow problems out of proportion. I always say that you need to learn to compartmentalize problems. If there is a problem, compartmentalize. Okay, this is a problem. All right, guys, let it not occupy my entire life and my entire mindset. It's okay. I know it's a problem. Fine. I'll deal with it when the time comes. It's okay. Let it not corrupt my entire way of thinking, my entire way of living my life. And this is equally important for parents. And this can be very controversial, what I'm trying to tell you, but I generally speak my mind. Okay. No child in the world has any obligation to live up to the parents' expectation. Please keep this in mind. Okay. Because you will never ever give credit to your parents if you surpass their expectations also. If you become successful, let me ask this question to you. Suppose you become successful in life. Do you take all the credit? No, you don't take all the credit, right? If you become successful, you don't take all the credit. So when you become failure, why should you take all the blame? If there are a lot of situations around you that make you successful, there are a lot of situations around you that make you failure also. So don't punish yourself. So parents need to understand, and this is where I'll quote Khalil Gibran, one of my favorite authors. So Khalil Gibran in his book Prophet wrote very beautifully. Khalil Gibran says, and I quote him, "You are from your parents, not of your parents." So for a parent, they need to understand the child is from you and not of you. Okay. Your job is to, you are that bow. Okay. And the only job of that person who's holding the bow is to put as much effort on the stretch, the string as much possible. But it's only the Almighty who decides the direction of the arrow. Your job is to ensure that the stretch is proper. That's it. The problem that often happens with parents is that they start deciding the direction of the arrow. That is the problem. Okay. Now, my child could be anybody. I'm a father. My child could be anybody. But I need to ensure that whatever is the child trying to be, can I just become a good parent? Good parent is not about leading from the front. Good parent is about leading from the back. You tell your child that you climb the tree, that in case you fall, I'll catch you. Not that I'll climb ahead of you. No. Or not that I'll show you how to climb the tree. No. You climb the tree, but please be assured that if you fall, I'll be there to catch you. Okay. So I think as parents, we are very accountable to ensure that children have no obligation to finish our agenda. कि मैं तो डॉक्टर नहीं बन पाया, तुम डॉक्टर बन जाओ. मैंने तो कुछ लाइफ में किया नहीं, तुम कर लो. No. He doesn't have to finish your old story. You create a new story. Okay. Because every child comes with a prarabdh. There is a punarjanmas. There are previous janmas that the child has carrying. It's incidental that he's born in your family. Okay, that's it. That's an accident he's born in your family. But there is a child who has an entirely different set of makeup, entirely different set of karmic composition of the child. That will define the destiny of the child. And that's the reason why nobody knows what is the fate of Albert Einstein's brother. Nobody knows what is the fate of Marie Curie's sister. Nobody knows what happens to the brother of Abraham Lincoln. Had it been about parenting, all the brothers of Abraham Lincoln would have become somebody big. Had it been about, Isaac Newton's parents who divorced at the age when he was 4, his siblings would have been equally big scientists. But it doesn't happen that way. Isaac Newton is an exception, born in an ordinary family. So I think parents need to be humble enough that they are the gardener. They're not the genetic code of the seed. As a gardener, I need to, water the flower, read when there are, protect and allow it to blossom because nature dictates the terms. You're just a gardener. That is a philosophy that parents need to have, I think.
Excellent. I think, the inputs that you have given, the sources that you've cited, the examples that you've taken, they are all consistent with what you are expressing, what you are suggesting. And I think parents do come across this and then they go back to their own momentum, and this needs repetition. I think two things which I want to add is, I think there is that Buddhist thing also, that this too shall pass. And I think how that gets into the DNA of the parent as well as the child is something that we need to foster continuously. Of course, the other thing is, I think, when you say that they're born in the family, you're also saying that make way for them, make the way for them. I mean, don't put everything in front of them, but don't stand in their way as much as, you make the way kind of thing. And certainly, I think this sort of reassurance that if parents can give to their children, kind of space which can be given, I think it goes a long way as far as the child goes, despite all the pressures that they may face from the peer side. Thank you very much. I think we are running short of time. I'm pausing here and giving back to Professor Rao.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think it's a wonderful conversation, and I was also not conscious of time. When somebody like Dr. Pavan Soni is speaking, it's so nice. It's settling very well, and it is also addressing some of the problems that I may have some gray areas about myself. Very good. I'll quickly go over a couple of questions, and I request the members in audience to raise their hand to directly talk to you. We will see how much we can work on. We have about 11 minutes, but let's see. So my questions are, before they raise their hand, very simple. And this is more in terms of the book itself, and those fall along the 2 to 3 buckets. So let me put it like that, and you can choose to respond along the way that you narrate. So the first one is about future back thinking. The future back thinking, how can you, if you can explain to us as a matter of fact, how one can implement this approach in the career planning? That is the first one I would request you to respond to. Second one is about leadership. you have talked a lot about leadership as well, saying that leadership is a choice. What is the advice that you would like to give it to someone who aspires to be a leader, but may not feel that at this stage one is ready or qualified? So that's about leadership. And the third and the last one is about general misconceptions about career development that most of us have. Maybe you can touch upon two, three, so that it clears the air for us. These are the three buckets of questions that I have, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. So the future back thinking essentially, and I'll roll the future back thinking on leadership as well. Suppose I want to be a leader. Okay. There are two ways of going about it. One is called present forward thinking, and second is called future back thinking. The present forward thinking would mean that I decide that I want to be a leader, and I hope that if I continue doing what I'm doing earnestly, honestly, with a lot of hard work, I'll reach there. The future back thinking is that I give myself a cutoff date. I say that I want to become a leader of a team of 20 people by January 2027. And I write it down on a board in front of me. And believe me, it works. The reason it works is because at a very subconscious level, you are reminding yourself. And that's the reason why chanting helps. When people chant, why people read Bhagavad Gita maybe throughout their life. It's not that every time that they're reading, they're getting something new, but it's a reminder that if there is a slight deviation from their ideal, they come back. Deviation, they come back. So that is what Bhagavad Gita or any chanting does to you. So if you can write it down, I want to be this, and ask three questions, make three columns before it. Start, stop, sustain. What should I start doing today? The two things which I should start doing today that will take me there. What are the two things I should stop doing that should take me there? And sustain. What are the things which I'm doing at present which I think are good enough for me to reach there? Now, out of start, stop, and sustain, I believe that the most tricky part is stop. Many people are not clear and not confident that I can really stop doing something. If I talk about leadership exclusively, then one of the things that I need to stop doing right away is micromanagement. If I micromanage, what happens is I'm not only choking my own bandwidth, but I'm also never allowing people to make mistakes. And if people don't make mistakes, they'll never grow. They have to make mistakes. But I, as a leader, have to allow the mistakes to be made. Okay. And that is how they develop a sense of ownership. Now, coming to your third question, which is about the career sort of fallacies or misconceptions that people often harbor. The biggest career fallacy, which I reckon that people needs to have, is the fact that I'm not ready yet. When I talk to entrepreneurs, they often tell me that, no, I'm not ready to be an entrepreneur yet, or I'm not ready to be a manager yet. I'm not ready to be a leader yet. Believe me, you will get ready only on the job. There's nobody who is ever ready fully. You are ready 70%. What between readiness and intent, what matters is intent. Believe me, I never had any inkling that I'll ever become an author. This authoring my first book, Design Your Thinking, was an absolute serendipitous event. Somebody from Penguin reached out to me asking if I'll be interested in writing a book for them on design thinking. And on the hindsight, I can't think of a better gambit than that, because that pretty much changed the course of my life as far as the dimension of authoring is concerned. What I would have said to them that I'm not ready yet. I could have said I'm not ready yet, and that would have been a different outcome altogether. They would have said that okay. They would have never said that we'll wait till you get ready. They would have simply gone to another title. So you have to be ready on the job, which means you need to learn to take half chances. And the second misconception is that my boss, my spouse, my HR is responsible for my career. No, okay, nobody else is as concerned as you should ideally be about your career. So I'm not ready yet, and somebody else is responsible for my career. These are the death knells that one needs to avoid as far as career goes.
Super, super. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That makes a lot of sense. A large part of your responses today might make one think that this is more about personal effectiveness, self-management, approach to life, and general things like that. But the sense that we have to make out of this is that a large part of what we do, the kind of time that we spend, and as you have explained in the introduction, is about careers. I think that makes a lot of sense, that if self-effectiveness and managing oneself and having clarity in one's own approach will lead to, of course, also designing one's career. So that's the connect that you have provided there. Now, I want to request you to respond to one important question or two important questions before anybody likes to ask you. That is about the huge talk that is going around with respect to the work-life balance. On one hand, we have the pursuit of excellence in career. On the other thing is to have a fulfilling life. How do we balance this career development versus or the pursuit of success versus having a fulfilling life? Any one or two tips that you can give? Because a large number of successful entrepreneurs, they talk about the fact and they also say that there is nothing like work-life balance. That is one end. At the other end, there is a lot of theory of work-life balance. In between these two, what would you suggest? What would you recommend to us?
Good question. It's a very good question. My view is that people need to now seriously think about what are the activities that they should do and what are the activities that somebody else should do. Simple example. Okay. And we have three levers, which is automate, delegate, outsource. A simple example is a friend of mine who recently got promoted in his office. The first thing that he did is to buy himself a chauffeur. A lady friend of mine got who became a mother, the first thing she did is to get a cook. What happens is people are not creative enough to understand that if I have to do these activities, then do I have to do all the activities myself? Or is it okay if some of the activities can get done? So when you're trying to aspire to become somebody big in organization, you will obviously end up having a lot of stuff on your plate. The stuff which is already on your plate has to be also managed well. So that you're not compressing all of that either in terms of killing yourself or killing the quality of job. So by thinking creatively about who else and what else could be done, by delegating it, by automating it, or by completely eliminating it, that I don't have to do that. And I think Germans are very good at it. So in German organizations, what I have realized is that they have this concept of a 10-minute meetings. All meetings in German organizations are typically scheduled for only 10 minutes. And if I need to extend it, it's always a factor of 10, multiple of 10, 10 into 2, 20, 20, or maybe 30 minutes. It's never 30 minutes, always 10 minutes. And what they realize is whatever can be done in 30 minutes can also be done in 10 minutes, right? So what I want us to understand is that if you can start seriously considering that these are the things which I can do better than others, only that I should do, that will really, really ease a lot of your priorities in life. Okay. And anything else that somebody else can do, like cooking food for me, like dropping my children or picking my children from office, driving me to the office, or sitting in the meeting and giving me the minutes of the meeting, let people do it. That way, what happens is you are growing and you're allowing people around you also to grow and make them more accountable. And that's the reason CEOs have families. That's the reason presidents and prime ministers have a hobby, isn't it? Otherwise, they would have been long dead with the kind of pressure that they are. So, act of delegating, automating, and on a daily basis prioritizing is very critical.
Amazing, amazing practical framework for us to go by. And I'm sure it is equally important to people at all stages of their career in life. Amazing. Sir, another thing that I noticed in your responses is that you're giving a lot of suggestions to parents, students. You're giving a lot of suggestions to career, mid-career leaders, all kinds of people. Are there any suggestions to the employers? We have seen your profile that you've been doing lots of workshops and consulting assignments. I'm sure there are thoughts crystallizing around some advice to even employers so that collectively we make this happen and one can have a very fruitful, enjoyable, fulfilling kind of life only when both the ends come together and make it happen. Any suggestions to them?
Good question. Now, there are two places where I went, two type of institutions where I went, where nobody ever complained about work-life balance. Nobody. To three places I went, and nobody ever complained about work-life balance. The first place was ISRO.
Sorry?
ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, Bangalore. ISRO, nobody ever came to me at ISRO saying that, I have a problem of work-life balance. The second place I went to is the St. John's Medical College. I was doing a workshop with doctors. In ISRO, I was doing a workshop with scientists, rocket scientists. And third place where I went is called as DSSC, Defense Service Staff College, Wellington, Kannur. So Defense Service Staff College is the most premier staff college in the country where they train colonels and people with 15 years of experience in the armed forces. In military also, nobody complains about work-life balance. Each of the three places, people are invariably working for more than 8 hours a day. At ISRO, at hospitals, and at armed forces. There is no cutoff of 8 hours per day. People don't get overtime. At ISRO, there is no concept of overtime. In hospitals, obviously, there's no concept of overtime. In military, there's no concept of overtime. How is it possible that in the corporate world, where people are sitting in AC, people are not facing bullets, people are having all this sort of comforts like vending machines, cafeterias 24 hours, public transport, all of that, people in the corporate world are complaining about work-life balance. And people who are sitting in Kashmir Valley, people who are sitting in mortuary, people who are doing some graveyard shift in ISRO at Sriharikota, they are concerned about bigger things. And the difference, in my opinion, is a sense of purpose. So, as an organization, as an employer, if you can establish a very clear sense of purpose to your employee, that why are you willing to pay the price of your life? Why are you willing to face the bullet today? Why are you willing to stand for 36 hours and ensure this operation is successful? Why are you ensuring that even if it means you travel from this place to Shri Harikota, leaving your family here for 1 month, you should be willing to ensure that the satellite assembly is done? Nothing doing. You go there now. You go there. Okay? Because sense of purpose is clear. In many companies, managers and bosses and leaders don't give a sense of purpose. They simply threaten them. They tell if you don't. They don't tell if you do. You see the difference? If you don't do it, then all these things will happen. But if you do, क्या बड़ा होगा? हम कर क्यों रहे हैं? If everything is reduced to quarter performance, getting more revenues, getting more customers, I think this becomes very puny. And as a result, people can't pull themselves through. Napoleon Bonaparte very famously said, the French journal very famously said that a man will not give his minute to you. A man will not give his 1 minute to you, but he will give his entire life to you for a colored ribbon. The colored ribbon is the badge. With that medallion for the badge, he'll give his entire life to you, but otherwise he'll not give a minute to you. So if you can set a clear purpose for your employees, I think you don't have to really worry about anything else. That's a distinction factor.
Great, great. I think this is a wonderful thought that goes a long way. Creating a sense of purpose,
Yes.
a compelling sense of purpose for your employees, your team members. I think it is applicable to all people at all levels of leadership, not just the employer. I think if one focuses on defining and clarifying it to people and make it shared, and I'm sure the downstream activities will be even more enjoyable and they stay attached. Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. And this is all the time that we have. And I would like to thank you for this time, energy, and expertise that you have spent with us in this amazing conversation, which shall be remembered for a long time. And more importantly, it will help us dive into your book once again. And many people who are around the screen will go back and read. We'll also make a summary of this conversation apart from the video. Make a text summary. We'll share it with you. Once you approve it, we'll put it on our website.
Yes,
Some
sir.
of these are going to be practically useful. The frameworks, you're a man of frameworks in the sense that it is simplified, ready to use uh, kind of postulates. It's not theory end of postulate, but practice end of postulates that you're talking about. Very nice, distilled and drawn from your vast experience of conducting workshops, talking to people and leaders at various levels. Amazing.
Thank you, sir.
It is made easy for us. It is made easy for us. I'll come back to you with the summary so that it can further be simplified and put it on the website so that people can learn from it and do it. Some of the big takeaways from this, the biggest is the lovely ambience that you're speaking from in one of the best campuses in the country. Okay, there is a selfish motive in saying that. Second is your urge to all of us to follow the ITC and the attention, empathy, creativity framework. Develop a thick skin. I mean, this is very simple. Apart from the acronyms, life is a portfolio of careers, and career is a portfolio of enterprises, not an enterprise in itself. Similarly, the first one, not a career in itself. We need to have a portfolio approach so that it balances out, trades off, and manages one another. Financial freedom gives intellectual honesty. Experiments can give you self-confidence. World has always been VUCA, and it will be like that for those contexts and periods of VUCA one has to manage. Peace inside is not there, although there is a lot of peace around us. Reduce your zone of concern and increase your zone of influence. Only competition is with you as of yesterday. Don't compare with others. And level of thinking, your tomorrow's level of thinking will make your current level of problems look small. I think that kind of approach is very good. Nothing is insurmountable. That's the way of life that one has to look at. Suggestions for parents have been taken very well, received it absolutely well. The start, stop, sustain framework is amazing. The two choices that we have in terms of present forward leadership or future back thinking kind of approach, you have batted for future back thinking, and then there's a model that's available. And leaders, there's a lot of lessons for leaders and work-life balance. Allow your teams to make mistakes, don't micromanage, and allow them to grow as leaders. As a leader, you will have to grow many leaders, develop many people as leaders as well. The countless number of takeaways, amazingly satisfied, great way to begin the new year. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Pavan Soni, wonderfully talking about designing your life and designing your career. And we will come back to you on 10th of January with yet another leader at 6:30 p.m. on Friday. Till then, go back to the website that we have of Dr. Pavan Soni and read some of the impacts that he has made it. Large number of videos are there, easy to watch and easy to pick up and go by. I'll encourage all of you to do that, and of course, read these two books. There are only two books, but two mega hits and wonderful books that all of us should definitely read. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
We admire your simplistic way of putting the most profound things. I really admire that and continue to learn from you every day. We'll stay connected, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.